have a very exciting painting tutorial for you where we're gonna walk through this quite detailed architectural street view watercolor painting of a bookshop. I needed a painting like this for my upcoming shop collection, so I thought why not film the process and share it with you. So I'm using this B5 size Etchr's Lab watercolor journal. It honestly doesn't have the best watercolor paper I own, but I thought it would be enough for this style since we don't need to blend any large areas that much. But before we take out the watercolors, we'll create a sketch of the whole picture, and I think this is especially important for this style. We'll have all kinds of small details that we'll need to carefully color with the watercolors, so having a clear sketch will help us so much later. I started with a pencil sketch, but I'm gonna speed through this a little bit in the video since we'll draw everything again with a skinny black pen that you'll see much better in the video. The pencil sketches always disappear under my studio lights, but basically we want to first determine the outlines of this picture. I used pretty much the whole page for this painting. It's definitely easier to get all those small details if you're painting this in a larger size. And then some of the main dividing lines in this picture are the different floors of the building. So there will be some bigger windows on the second floor, and then the lower part will be for the bookshop. But now that we've sketched the whole thing with the pencil, let's take out the black pens and start going over everything with more detail. I was mainly using the 005 Pigma Micron at this stage, but I did end up darkening some of the lines later with the 01 size. I think a skinnier pen is definitely the key to keeping your lines delicate and making sure that they kind of disappear with the colors in a good way. So yeah, we are gonna start from these lines here at the bottom of the picture, and I was just drawing freehand here. If you don't feel confident with your pen strokes, you could always use a ruler to keep the line straight, but I think this style almost benefits a little bit from some looser lines and scribbly edges, so I wasn't worrying too much about keeping the line straight. Other than that, I really try to keep the shapes clean. My sketching and line work are often very loose and scribbly, which makes it hard for me to focus on small details and objects in the paintings, but this time I really tried to make the plants and books very detailed and defined because I wanted there to be some sharpness to the details in the final picture. So that means that I try to avoid too many unnecessary lines at this stage, because if it looks like we need more definition later, we can always add it, but having too many messy lines from the start is much harder to fix later. But then it's finally time to start the coloring process that we'll spend pretty much the rest of the video on. We'll progress with the coloring step by step, and I really wanted not to go overboard with the colors in the beginning because I wanted to keep certain areas here pretty light. Also, be sure to erase any excess pencil lines at this point. Erasing on a watercolor paper might damage it a little bit, but if you do it carefully, you'll be totally fine. So we'll start the coloring kind of from the overall building colors, and then we'll move on to all the smaller details. I wanted there to be a clear dividing line with the building floor colors to add a more interesting look to the whole painting. So we'll paint the upper part with this very light brownish color, and then the lower part will get some cool darker gray tones. I wanted the overall style to be quite vintage, maybe inspired by some European street views with old buildings and small cute shops. So to achieve that, we want to keep the colors quite muted and around these brownish grayish tones. We'll add some color and brightness through the details, which I think complemented these neutral colors very well. But after the first washes, we'll then start painting the bland areas. I'll add the paint colors I'm using for each part to the screen, by the way, so it's easier for you to follow along. It's sometimes a little bit difficult to get a close-up shot of what I'm painting while still having the whole watercolor palette visible too. But anyway, I went with some pretty bright green tones and then added some darker shadow colors to the lower parts of the leaves, and also kinda threw out the plant areas with these careful tapping motions. I also wanted to leave some individual leaves along the plant outlines that will help to visualize these green blob areas as plants. After that, we'll move on to the rest of the areas at the bottom of the painting, and this is probably the part that took me the longest. So I really wanted these window panels, the books, and everything else to have a very colorful and sharp details. So it meant that you'll need to slowly go over these tiny areas with different colors and try to keep everything from blending together. I used some red, blue and brown colors for the books, and then painted the background with this dark black color that we'll touch up later as well. So all of this was just very slow and precise, not exactly something I'm very good at, to be honest. I'm often quite impatient while painting, but I really wanted to push myself this time and try to focus on all these tiny details. I feel like there definitely is an ugly, messy phase for a painting like this, because you'll need to very carefully go around everything and remove any small white stripes and dots around the details. Using a very tiny brush will definitely help you. And I also had to go over some of the brighter colors a few times because they kept drying much lighter than what I wanted. So just take your time and know that we always have the option to define some of these lines with pens as well. So it doesn't all need to be perfectly outlined or defined with the watercolors only. I wanted these window classes to kind of combine some of the different colors from the rest of the painting. So instead of just adding a solid dark color to them, I mixed some red, brown and bluish gray to the rest and let them melt together to create some more color variation. We'll touch up all these areas too in the final polishing phase to add some brighter colors and more shadows, but I think doing it this way definitely added some more life and color to the painting. Then after painting the upper windows, I started to add some of these brick details to the wall, which ended up being one of my favorite parts of this whole painting. You don't need to cover the whole area with bricks. I think adding them only to a few places and then adding some color variation to the other parts will give the needed texture without being too much at the same time. But after that, and also adding some more intensity and shadows to this whole upper part, I took out the black pen again and started to redefine some of the line work. I think this is a very important step to bring out the details, especially in the areas where the color intensity is very similar. I think it can be quite difficult to keep things separated with watercolors, because to do that you need either a darker border or some light stripes between different elements, and it can be quite challenging to keep those in the painting when working freehand with flimsy watercolor brushes and water that wants to just blend over the outlines. So yeah, this is where both black and white pens will be your best friend to add back some of those needed outlines, highlights and shadows. At this point, I just went over the whole picture with the black pen and then went over some of the colors with one more layer. I especially wanted to intensify some of the brighter colors, so I went over the books once more and also blended some more fun colors to the windows. I also kept adding some shadows to anywhere that I thought needed it, which I think just slowly adds more depth to a painting like this. Then we can finally take out the white pen, and I hope you're able to see how big of a difference it made. So I decided to add some window panels with it to these middle windows, but even other than that, I used the white pen to highlight some of the lines and corners, and I think it helps so much to bring back detail and sharpness to the picture. But after that, there were only a few last touches that I wanted to add to the street lamp and to the leaves, and then our bookshop street view is finally done. I'll definitely edit and polish this painting even further after I scan it to my computer. This will be part of an upcoming Etchr shop collection that will come out together with the new fall collection at the beginning of September. Also, I know this was slightly longer and more challenging painting that I usually use for these painting tutorials for sure. I think this took me probably around 6 hours in real life, but I hope you'll still enjoy giving this a go. And you could always start with a much smaller scale painting with just a few details. So you don't need to go straight to the whole 2-floor building with bunch of windows if you don't feel ready for it or just don't have the time. And I promise that we'll do something a little bit faster and easier in the next painting tutorial. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if this was your first time around here, please consider subscribing. I hope you're having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye!